Hey, friends, we are fearless. Welcome to the podcast. My name is Frances Young, and we are here in season 2, and I have a very special guest with me today. Before we get to this episode, I would really love for you to know what your human design energy type is so that you can follow along with what we're talking about, whether it's an episode with a guest or it's the Fearless Shorts. You're going to go to my website, www.thefearlessprojectltd.com. You're going to input some information, and it's going to spit out something that looks a little weird. Yeah, that is called a human design body graph. It's going to tell you 3 important things that today I hope that you go forth into the rest of life, understanding what energy type means, strategy, and authority. And if not, just keep listening to the podcast. I can't wait for you to see what we talk about, what I talk about, and maybe get a laugh or two. So, without further ado, her name is Dani. And Dani, let's start off by, what is one thing that you are super excited about in life right now?
Just being present, honestly. I think just reaching middle age and being in my mid-40s, I'm not rushing to get anywhere. There's nowhere I'm trying to get to. So it's not even excited. I'm just really grateful for my life. I'm just really present to what is.
The reason why I asked that question is partially because Dani happens to be a generator for her human design energy type, but also I had a first season, and with this podcast, what my idea was initially was that I was going to start with my friends and family. Hey, friends, hey, family. If you want to learn more about your human design and your health, let's get nerdy. Let's talk about it like a conversation over tea or coffee, and then we'll relay it to the world so that they can learn. In season 2, I'm reaching out to people that are esteemed in my world, people that I look up to, people that I think to myself, maybe I'll have a really cool conversation with. Dani happens to be one of those people. So my question now is just like, what's exciting in life? And that happens to be like a cool thing for you being a generator.
Yeah, it's honestly just the life that I'm living, every part of it. I think that there's something about, for me, the mid-40s of just really landing where I am and feeling immense gratitude for that. And I'm really fortunate to live out in the woods in a really peaceful way, but it only takes me 25 minutes to get to the center of Nashville. We got back from Greece a couple weeks ago. I'm just happy to be home and in my routine.
Amazing. One thing I'll mention for audience members as well, Dani, you were the person that taught me astrology.
I
Yeah.
love that.
I took your astrology 101 only last year. I'm confused on years.
Yeah.
The way that you speak about how you interpret the poetry of the sky is just grounded, yet also practical, yet so likes to throw things on its head at the same time.
I'm so glad it resonated with you.
Yeah. How long have you known about human design?
I think it came into my orbit probably around 2016, probably about 8 years. It's pretty new to me, not new in the world. In my orbit, I would say about 8 years.
Amazing. They've still known it a little bit longer than myself. I've only known about it since 2022 and have found it to be such an interesting practice to add to my life and what's exciting and enticing to me being a generator, a health and fitness instructor. I really disliked when clients asked me questions, basically every session, what should I eat? When should I go to bed? At this point, still not knowing about human design until more recently, just naturally didn't like the question because I felt like I genuinely did not have an answer.
Right.
What? With all of the knowledge I already had of taking courses, of knowing all these different things that I practiced and tried.
Trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when human design came along and I started to realize that, oh, maybe this is the way that I answer all of these questions that have this open-ended feeling of it depends to an extent.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you found out about human design, did it give you light bulbs along with all of this other knowledge that you have within astrology could be going on with your body physically?
I tend to be intellectual. I tend to be headier. I tend to think about conceptual things in the world at large. I tend to think about history and then human behavior. Fitness is not where my mind. I take a walk. I do hot yoga. I do that. But I don't spend a lot of time thinking about fitness. I strength train, but I do it and I don't think about it. Does that make sense? Like it's not, I'm a reader. I'm interested in philosophy and history and literature and art. No, because I looked at it through that lens.
Yeah. Okay.
More than the fitness lens.
I find that refreshing, to be perfectly honest, because of when, depending on the person that comes in finding out about human design, regardless if they're in fitness or not, they're like, this is going to solve all my problems. Depending on like frame is coming
Operate like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think like that. I don't operate like that. I'm not looking for like plug in answer. My default is to think very, very big in terms of human evolution or very intimately about the human experience from an emotional, psychological, intimacy, interrelational place or art.
It's amazing. I'll draw in the fact that I know you're an emotional authority for your human design. You saying that, I'm like, or she says that.
Yeah.
And
I'm feeling based. Yeah, that's my superpower is feeling.
Yeah. That when you're eating according to your design, that the vibes, the pickup in a room alone energetically with you around where the sun was when you were born was in Virgo season.
Yeah.
And
correct.
We both happen to be Cancer risings. You have a Capricorn moon. My best friend has a Capricorn moon. I feel like I get the pragmatic of emotional intelligence with the Capricorn moon, but yet the feistiness, because people don't realize that the Capricorn moon is feisty. Like,
I think that there's an instinctual, almost like survival mechanism. Whatever it is, I'll do it. I'll take care of it. I'll get it done. With that can come a kind of feistiness or saltiness, right? Also, because my sun is sandwiched between Jupiter and Saturn, it's almost like I have a Sag Cap thing going on as well. And so I'm not a typical Virgo in that way.
No. And we both, the two of us, when I was even like looking at our charts and how they combine together, because that's me going down nerdy rabbit holes.
Yeah.
Is I have a stellium in Virgo myself. I have my Jupiter and my IC. I thought it was interesting the fact that your sun was sandwiched in between your Jupiter and your Saturn, and wondering how you do look at your health through the body as opposed to just allowing your brain to interpret the world and then interpret what's going on with your body.
I use equal houses. So my Saturn is in my third.
Oh, in your third.
My Jupiter, my sun, and my Saturn in my third house. And third house is writing, speaking, learning. I have 3 siblings, but I'm in a way sandwiched between my 2 older sisters. So body, it's more Sag in my 6th and Neptune there, which is Piscean. And I tend to absorb things emotionally from my environment. And I don't like to take a lot of supplements. I don't like to put a lot of extra things in my body. I tend to be more interested in just eating clean, no processed foods. But if a cookie is made with a lot of love, then that's like that. I don't have a fixation or obsession on what my body looks like from the outside. It's more about how I feel on the inside. I was not raised in a household where there was any emphasis on looks. The emphasis was all on intellect. I don't, from a familial standpoint of that being a focus. My dad got up every morning and went to the gym. So I saw that. My mom is not active. I love to be active and to move. It's more like, how does it feel than anything in my body? I try and eat everything from a local regenerative farm. We get raw milk from a local regenerative farm.
All of your vegetables local as well from local farms.
Yeah, and fruits. I would just pretty much live that way. My guy does all the cooking. He goes and he picks out the fruits and vegetables and all that, but he knows our local farmers, and that's important to us. How is the food being grown? It's more about that. How does it feel than someone gives me, eat this in this way.
Yeah.
The only thing that's not really local is I eat raw chocolate, and that's obviously not local. Sometimes we eat bananas. We don't make it more complicated than that.
Well, and it doesn't have to be complicated. The craziest thing about just where I've come into health and fitness at a certain point, I had a completely different background with regards to looking at my body, my background, and what I did growing up. I'm trained as a professional contemporary dancer.
Yeah.
In my home, overall, from what I can remember, there was body positivity. There was concern because my dad had diabetes. And my grandmother, his mom, also had diabetes. There was lots of awareness around, I'm going to put in air quotes, like healthy eating and what we perceived to be healthy eating as I was a child. But my perception of what my body looked like was put in front of a mirror from a very young age. Oh, I looked at my body in comparison to others and its physicality, what I thought was desirable, what I thought was supposed to look sexy or feminine.
Yeah.
Very much distorted from a young age. And then getting into health and fitness was also another level of distortion in the way that the industry operates. Let's say it that way.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
When it came to a point in which human design came along for me, I actually have re-fallen in love with my womanly figure.
It's so beautiful.
As a teenager, I developed breast and got a butt and was in ballet school and was told that wasn't good. So
what year were you born?
92.
Yeah. So I'm 12 years older than you. I was born in 80, and it was really toxic growing up, the heroin chic thing, super kind of androgynous body. I do have a feminine figure, and that was tough. I was anorexic when I was younger, but from an emotional control place more than anything. I wanted to be able to control my environment, and I couldn't, and that's how I dealt with it. But I also think if you were born in 92 and you were coming of age in the early mid 2000s, I can imagine same thing. There was still that kind of energy around this is what it should look like. This is how they make clothes in this. Yeah. My real first dose of that was when I moved to LA. It is such a focus. So I think our environment places has a huge, huge effect. And the human design can help us root in ourselves. So it would make sense beyond ballet, beyond dancing, that the messaging you receive from the culture was the acceptable body type.
Yeah. And what then plays in my own brain is the narrative of then, okay, so how do I achieve what I'm perceiving is supposed to be correct?
Yes. Yes.
Was like a whole mind game. I have witnessed a lot of friends go through their own eating disorders, their own struggles with how they view their own body. The ways in which I happen to see myself at what time. I don't want to use the words lucky. Words are so particular. I think at what time that I was being physical allowed me to somehow not fixate as much on food. Personally, I didn't experience bulimia or any actually food disorder, but definitely how my mind plays for me with my 12th house with Gemini has had its ups and downs on now how I relate to that story. of how I think about my body.
Yeah. What is your experience of the conversation around it in Canada? It's different in America. It's different regionally, the conversation around weight and health, and it's now become a political issue in America. What is your experience of that?
That's a wonderful question. My experience with that is I have seen it change as a whole, and that it is getting more overall just body positive.
Mhm.
It's maybe swinging a little bit far on prescribing that we're allowing our bone structure to be what it's supposed to be, and our fats and our tissues,
Right.
what that naturally is. It's going a little bit more onto you should be happy with whatever you have mentality. So I've seen it go that far.
Right.
But I feel like it's all dependent on your environment.
Mhm. Totally.
One, as you mentioned.
Mhm.
And I've noticed that for me personally,
Mhm.
when my mind and my experience currently and how I think about my body changes, also the people who are around me and their own internal body experience is
Yeah.
also reflecting that I am actually very comfortable in the way that I feel in my body right now. And then all of a sudden, the people that are around me, everyone else who isn't as comfortable anymore, just starts to drop away.
Interesting.
Hmm.
As like a mirror.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm someone that keeps up enough with what's going on politically,
Mhm.
just greaterly know
Yeah.
what's going on in my country, the world as a whole.
Yeah.
I'm definitely selective with how much information I put in front of myself, health, fitness wise, what ads come up on my phone and the things that I'm speaking
Yeah.
about, because it's just adding fuel to the fire right now of other things that are going to distract me away from, to even say a super generator thing, just being excited about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
The thing that I found so interesting, my experience with human design, pre to finding human design, I've counted macros. I've done the things to change my
Mm.
body as a trainer that I thought
Yeah.
aesthetically I wanted to look and to have.
My
Let
partner does that all the time. It's crazy to watch.
It's a lot. I actually never prescribe it to anyone. Having a dramatic life change post a period of 6 months in which I was counting macros, all of a sudden my body leaned out.
Interesting. So you were holding too much
Yeah.
energetically.
Yeah. Nobody teaches you that in school. Nobody tells you that.
No, that's interesting that you say it because when I started to really take off, I was seeing 100 clients a month and I did balloon in weight because I was holding so much space. And that's something I have to be mindful of is what am I carrying that's not mine emotionally?
100%. And for us being Cancer risings, we carry that water retention as a whole. That's something that is a trait of a Cancer rising.
Yeah.
I notice that as well. I go to my
Yeah.
acupuncturist and massage therapist. She's like, what part of your cycle you're in? You're always holding water.
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe it's just because I'm this.
Yes. All the time. I have that conversation. If I've had a day of clients, I will hold more water than normal.
Mm-hmm.
I will hold an even higher number or amount of water.
Interesting.
I have to do a lot of lymph, a lot of movement, a lot of sweating, sauna, hot yoga in order for me to move that.
In your human design graph as well, something that we have similar is we have an open root
Mhm.
and an open ego.
Mhm.
I have a completely open ego. I don't have any numbers or extra things going on.
Mhm.
You happen to have one gate in there, and that's where your Neptune is. These are like the cool things for me where I go down rabbit holes. When I learned the concept of letting go of pressure and the need to
Mhm.
feel like being on time, always been a like need to be 2 hours ahead of time type of person. And as well, when someone then described open ego about motivation and motivation going up and down, those two things definitely help me feel more of myself on my own timeline. I talk about them to my own clients, regardless of
Yeah.
also what their astrology is as well. But the reframe on those things is also something that isn't really talked in health. I definitely feel like it's talked in mental health, maybe in
Yeah.
how we perceive our relationships with other people. But on our physical health, it still doesn't feel, at least to me, that people bring it to as much as this is really important
Mhm.
in order to feel like you're living your life in a present way.
Yeah. Live in too prescriptive a society.
Yeah. Yeah. We're obsessed with that because we want the answer to everything. That's a part of our human condition that it's our blessing and our curse as humans. It has a beautiful sense of our drive to also keep us going.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. And it keeps us not being present, right? I think it's the relationship to the unknown. I think that what I can often help my clients, or what I try and help my clients with, is release attachment to outcome
Mm.
and relationship energetically to uncertainty and the unknown. It then opens up all kinds of possibilities. Depends on the individual and how and their makeup, but it's certainly a part of it in terms of how open we are to life unfolding and the matter than trying to architect it to our egoic desires.
And what we perceive in the moment of this outcome that we think is the thing that we think that we want.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And what we want isn't always what we need and what's actually for our highest good. Sometimes it is,
Mhm.
but not always.
I've definitely had a lot of reflective moments in myself that, as much as for me personally, this thing called human design giving me some answers to it depends and how I speak to my clients. I've been retaught many times since 2022 in the past year of how quickly things need to change in order to feel and actually put us where we didn't realize we needed to be. A mind-blowing, game-changing moment that, as much as we can have our tools and our systems to better help us understand our experience and what we're dealing with, that at the end of the day, it's still going to be a surprise. And to expect the unexpected. This is funny. That was one of my Facebook quotes when Facebook was a thing.
And are you living in your environment? Isn't that a thing in human design? Environment?
Yeah. At least overall more now. And it's very interesting, even say in the past 4 years, how many times I have moved to environments that have definitely reflected what my actual environment is. That moved again to environments that were not, in order to, whether it was for a relationship, a job, or XYZ. And then at a certain point, my body and energetically around me saying, let's veer you back in another direction, which has been a very up-down experience for the 1-3, put it that way. Also makes me realize that as much as digestion is the biggest conditioner, at least within what we say, the human design sphere of what we ingest into our bodies and what is stimulatingly in front of us, our environment is still hand in hand. Till, say, in a snapshot, I moved to the United Kingdom, then I came back, then I lived in a place for a year and a half, then I lived in a place for 3 months, then I moved in with a partner, then I moved again and was transient for an entire year. Then I moved in September and I already removed out of another, just moved to a new place in June. Like,
That's a lot of movement.
A lot of moving. The universe is like, come on, Fran, like, just stay where we're trying to put you.
Are you in Toronto?
Yes.
I've never been to green space in the city.
Even the green spaces in the city are surrounded by buildings. It's very interesting that our environments happen to be the same. So we have natural shores as our environment style. I grew up 20 minutes outside of a local town in the middle of nowhere in Northern Ontario. Natural shores is any type of person that you'll find just living on the outskirts of something, or to be able to be in a city, but then have their nature, because natural is the side of the environment style that wants to be more connected to the Mother Earth as a whole. I tried living in a condo at Bay and Gerard in downtown Toronto. It only lasted a year.
I am just outside of the city of Nashville.
But then you still have access to it. You still can go to restaurants.
100%.
Your family is there. You have your little of, this is what I need to be grounded.
Yeah. Natural shores doesn't like at the ocean shore or at the lake shore.
It doesn't have to be. And such a deep rabbit hole for me has been to explore what all of the different environments can truly mean for somebody, as opposed to the
Yeah.
language that was initially used and downloaded from the very beginning. I had a really groundbreaking moment with a dear friend, also a coworker. They live in Portland, Oregon.
Mm.
She was very concerned and confused as to why she had markets as her environment. So we went down a rabbit hole of trying to feel how that maybe resonated, why she did or didn't like it, as a very open discussion, because she very much dislikes supermarkets or being in crowded hubs, which markets in human design is a description of an environment where someone just really wants to have the interaction of a give and take of a service, a good, like something that is being expressed in a way that you buy something at a market.
Yeah.
However, she is the curator of an online astrology lab. She's curating, she's helping facilitate the comings and goings of information, of how potentially someone finds a client, and all of these like different way of describing an interaction in that way. One, she's in control of it. Two, she's in the quiet of her own home. She's a 2-4 with her profile. So she very much, it needs to be her people and her be in her own genius as opposed to being distracted. As soon as we looked at it in that regard, she's like, oh my God, yes, I do have all of these environments that support how I work, which is so important. Right now, I live very close to the outside of Toronto. I live in a garage, but it's this student suite.
Amazing.
Yeah. Part of a house unit, but completely separate. I have my own little back deck that's completely private. I can also have some outside moments. Man, it's great to hear the birds in the morning and still be able to get downtown if I need to. And it feels like more of a correct environment for me.
That's awesome. Yeah, that I guess is interesting because 10 years ago, I was such a city person. It's interesting to discover. I also wonder if that's just age.
And life experience. You grew up in New York City. There wasn't a lot of nature, or did you live?
Do you know New York City?
Not well, but
I grew up uptown by the museums and the park. We went to the country every weekend, and I spent my summers there and in camp in New Hampshire. But my parents weren't nature people. So I was around, but I was in a house that was surrounded by woods, but it's not like I ever ventured into those woods. That I discovered in being with someone who grew up in and immersed in nature, and moving to New Zealand, spending time in New Zealand, and then spending more time here, spending a lot of time in Colorado over the past 22 years. Also, all of that has informed my understanding. To me, green, like I need to be certainly seasons. I need a change of seasons, and I need green. I'm not sure that I could live in, let's say, a part of Florida where you have this, but not a whole lot of green. If you had the nature coast, but a lot of urban environment. I grew up right near Central Park. I saw that all the time, even if I wasn't in it. And then I went to Connecticut all the time. I was surrounded by it. So maybe that's part of it. Being in California and then moving to Tennessee, I realized that foliage here is a very, very calming to my nervous system. I think Colorado is beautiful, but if I really think about like what nourishes me, it would be a more yin environment like this.
Yeah. I have found it such an interesting experience when I look at my journeys through different cities. I am a country girl, grew up on a dirt road, but every city that I moved to subsequently has been a little bit bigger than the last. I moved from dirt road, 100 people to 20,000, and then 20,000 to 40,000, and then 40,000 to a million. And then what Toronto is now, I think it's close to 3 million. When I moved to the UK, I very purposely chose a city outside of London it was a very throwing what spaghetti is going to stick to the wall. My ideas of this is where I'm going to go. A very adventurous period for myself, which I found super exciting. And I would still do it in the same way. There was lots of green space. I had to walk to work because it was a small town and it was a commuter town. It was an hour train ride away, but you could get to the London Eye on one train. So the accessibility was very easy to
Yeah.
be in the middle of nowhere and then take a flight and go somewhere else in the world.
Nice.
One thing that you mentioned was, and what I know from looking at your design as well, that I haven't spoken to this particular design in a while, is that you happen to have what is called for human design, the bonus life, or a profile
Oh,
that is
4-1.
for one.
Yeah.
Mhm. In my vicinity of people and knowing people's designs, I only have one friend that is a 4-1. Actually, two. Sorry, two. So it's in air quotes more rare to come across that profile. When looking at yours and knowing what you do, how you speak, having my own perception of who Dani is, your incarnation cross makes a lot of sense to me. It has to deal with explaining the concept of the garden of what it means to be a human. And that soul that's having the human experience really wants us to be this, what we think may be this perfect experience, have all these things, have all this abundance, but yet we have to deal with poverty. We have to deal with all these things that are just a part of what it is to be here. You are a facilitator of helping humans understand and release their attachment to what it means to all of that as a story.
Yeah.
This makes a lot of sense for Dani.
Interesting. Yeah, I've heard the bonus life thing. Someone said to me that it means that there's not a lot of karma, but that's not been my experience at all.
The two people that I know
No.
that are also 4-1s, I've said this to them. When I look at their life and the things they've experienced, they have been through lots of what we could say karma or hardship, things that make them realize all of these bigger concepts about religion, spirituality, and just what it means to be here. I feel like maybe bonus life, to interpret it another way, is that maybe your soul is being given the experience to understand how great life is on both sides, the extremes.
Could absolutely be. Yeah. The 4-1 thing is really true. Immediately know who's my person and who's not my person. In terms of my close, intimate group, it's not a group, it's individual friendship. It's very small. I have a lot of acquaintances, but the people who really am in very close, intimate contact with, people wouldn't know those people through social media. I don't know if you've ever followed my page, but I really don't post people.
No. And I do follow your page. And you don't.
I'll post my partner or my dogs occasionally, but that is very, like, I was at the river with close friends. And I really don't want other people to post me. Like, if I repost something that someone's posted, that's not an intimate, always not part of my inner circle.
Yeah, totally. I can, in my brain right now, even think of all the people, regardless of if the 4 is in the beginning or after, their relation to social media is very different from a 1-3. Anything with a 3 or a 5, so different.
Yeah.
And I see it as healthy for them. I truly do, how they operate and the pressures that they put on themselves. This last astrology, maybe also human design nugget, because I'm super obsessed with it right now. Had another conversation with another astrologer about it, with Jupiter being in Gemini.
Yes.
And where it's going to be until at least, I can't remember if it's 2026 or well into 2025. I forget how long it's there.
It takes about a year. It takes about 13 months. I believe it's July. No, I think it's June of 2025.
Yeah. We've got it there for a moment. I've been reviewing how I feel about social media, how it feels in my business, how I see other people relating to social media right now, where media is coming across in all of our different ways, for how we're receiving political information, how we're receiving health information, how we're receiving whatever we're receiving. I'm really interested to just hear any nuggets from your brain about maybe some excitement about it, or let's see how this goes.
I think the more interesting thing is that it's going to be squaring off with Saturn in Pisces through most of its transit. That starts mid-August. So there's a balancing act between Jupiter, expand structure and grounding. That seems to me the more robust conversation, is that on some level, and because they're both mutable, there is an adaptability that is needed. But this idea that Gemini brings choices
Mhm.
and different pathways and different ways to communicate. But the Saturn in Pisces can veer towards fear. So how do we keep from going down the fear rabbit hole? And how can we find cautious optimism and whelmed by choice? How can we use it in a fluid way rather than feeling overburdened by it, essentially?
That word is definitely what has been coming to my mind personally, how I've been just
Mm.
relating to media in general, or just also everything feels really overwhelming right now. And how I speak to friends and family, there's
Yeah.
just general sense of build. My whole premise where I feel, at least right now, where a lot of my work is going is just helping people feel more fearless on the day-to-day moment. My business happens to be entitled
Mhm.
Fearless Project, that we don't have to be living in the fear of the
Mhm.
unknown and this like dreamy way in which we want to create new foundations for ourselves with Saturn still hanging out in Pisces.
It's going to be a big shift
Yeah.
when Saturn and Neptune move into Aries. But I think a lot of it has to do with trust in ourselves to have the tools to navigate whatever surfaces in life is ups and downs. I think that that's also a natural evolution with aging, though. You just have more experiences under your belt and the relationship to time shifts. Time feels precious in one way. We also realize that evolution takes time.
Mm.
Things take time. You go to Buddha, it's likely not going to be done overnight. Just to use that as a metaphor, but also a real thing. You're going to hit roadblocks. It's all part of it, taking things in stride. I think when we're younger, especially in this era, it's like we just want to know everything. You know, but it just doesn't work like that. It just doesn't,
It just doesn't.
so yeah.
I was the kid that wanted to be 20, as I was raised as an only child.
Mm.
I wanted to be with the
Yeah.
adult. And then I got to my 20s and then realized, oh my God, nobody still respects me. Now being in my early 30s, I can't wait till I'm 40.
Enjoy every moment
Yeah.
because it does just speed up. And where are we all racing to? Because no one gets out of here alive, right? So it's like just really,
Right. Being here.
yeah.
Well, Dani, thank you so much. This intellectual conversation
Mhm.
about health, how I really also wanted to break the mold on talking about health on this podcast, and you feel it. And that's also what's in your design. So thank you so much for coming
Yeah.
on and having a chat with me today.
Thank you so much. I hope you have a beautiful day.
I'd like to leave you with a reframe as to how to look at yourself with a little more fearlessness. Once upon a time, I did a meditation. This was a few years ago. Coming out of this meditation, something was very clear from my body. My body told me to fear itself less. You do not have to be afraid of the intuition that your body is speaking to you. You can fear yourself less. You can love yourself more. And I promise you that life is going to show you the rest.